Welcome to the Weather Insights Briefing. I'm meteorologist Scott Pitney along with meteorologist Jeff Lindner. We're recording this on August 21st. And Jeff, it's no secret that the tropics have been pretty quiet, which is, of course, is good news. But we are seeing this activity out in the Eastern Pacific. We have three systems lined up kind of aimed at Hawaii, which is pretty unusual. We have the first system that is moving off to the east. Now, all these systems, though, the water temperature around Hawaii is in the 70s, which is not conducive for development. So that's good news. And more than likely, these systems, if they stay on the track that they're on, will just bring heavy rain. But the first system has a 90% chance of development. Will likely become a named storm. And then we have Gilma behind that one. And then pulling up the rear, the last one there now at 70% disturbance number 2. So a very active Eastern Pacific for sure, which is unlike the Atlantic. You can see all the convection there along the intertropical convergence zone starting around Central America, just continuing on over toward the west and just lined up, like I said, aimed at the Hawaiian Islands. And then as we move over into the Atlantic southern basin, it's quite a different story. We still see a lot of activity coming off the African coast there along plume of convection, but nothing expected to develop. And then we have a little bit of an area of interest there in the Gulf of Mexico that we'll keep an eye on. Certainly this time of year, we can have development that just sort of pops up. The water temperature, as it has been and is still there, conducive for development, but kind of strange what's going on in the Atlantic right now for this time of year.
Yeah, I mean, we have the activity here off the coast of Africa. This looks it looks like there's something here, and there's just really nothing here. This is a combination of a very strong African jet coming off the coast, moving to the west, and you can see this is showers and thunderstorms, but they're more in a line instead of a circular area, more like a blob. We got a tropical wave coming off up here towards the islands. One tropical wave here in the Northeast Caribbean, probably a tropical wave here in the Western Caribbean. But you can see, for the most part, getting away from the coast of Africa, there's just not a lot of thunderstorm activity out there, and so obviously there's likely some sinking air. There still may be a little bit of dry air here, coming off of northern Africa. I think the bigger issue that we're seeing here in off the coast of Africa is this jet coming off the easterly shear, if you will. But it doesn't really explain what's going on over here in the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. Generally favorable conditions for the most part, but we're not seeing anything that's really getting its act together. And so we'll talk a little bit about the big ridge of high pressure sitting here over northwest Texas, eastern New Mexico. This is what's causing our big heat right now in the state of Texas. Really, it has not been that hot of a summer here for us in Southeast Texas up until the last couple of weeks. And really, the last couple of days have really been really warm, with the excessive heat warnings. And we'll do that again today. But you can see the high pressure ridge here is starting to push back to the west and northwest a little bit. And we're starting to get here on this eastern flank of this high. And so we actually had some thunderstorms, some big storms develop off of the upper Texas coast this morning. Sabine Pass over towards Bolivar. Yep. And those have been pushing out into the Gulf of Mexico, kind of on the tail end of this very weak trough. And there's an old frontal zone laying here that came down last weekend. And this is sort of lingering here in the Gulf of Mexico. And as this big ridge of high pressure over Texas builds into the Ohio Valley this weekend and into early next week, this southern portion of this trough here is going to kind of pinch off and start to move westward. We call that retrograde, and move westward along the Gulf Coast. And that's going to bring an increasing chance of tropical moisture and rainfall back into Southeast Texas. So while the heat is almost unbearable at the moment, it's not going to have staying power. So by the time we get into the weekend, we're looking highs low to mid 90s. We'll still have heat index over 100, But we're getting to that more typical summer pattern of a chance of showers and thunderstorms, especially along the coast. As we get into the weekend of next week, and next week may end up being kind of wet in the area. Get that tropical moisture in here, so changes are coming here in Texas. Just hold on. Inland areas, North Texas, Northwest Texas, probably not as much of an influence from this type of a pattern, but we'll see how this little trough axis breaks off and comes west over the next couple of days. And just to we're not having named storms right now. We just got done with Ernesto. Just to be clear, we've seen lulls like this in the Atlantic before. We actually saw a fairly big lull like this last year in 2023. So between July 25th and August 19th of last year, we didn't have any storms in the Atlantic basin. And so these types of things happen. You can see this is the climatological peak of hurricane season around September 10th and 11th. We're right here, so we're kind of starting that big climb up the peak here, where we start to see most of our hurricanes and tropical storms in the Atlantic basin. And I would just caution everybody that things can change relatively quickly this time of year. While it doesn't look like we're going to have any development over the next 5 to 7 days, by the time we get to toward that last week of August and right around the Labor Day weekend, things could potentially change to a more active look in the basin. So don't let your guard down. This is a good time to make sure you have all your supplies and your kits stocked and all that, just in case things get active, and especially in the Gulf of Mexico as we get towards the first part of September.
Yeah, and also interesting to note that all the named storms we have had this year have made landfall and have had some sort of impact on the United States. So yeah, just like you said, don't let your guard down. Check back regularly for all the tropical updates, and you can do it right here on Weather Insights. Be sure to subscribe to the Weather Insights podcast on our YouTube channel and share if you would, and make sure you click the notifications bell too to get the latest briefings on the tropics. Jeff, thank you very much.